So today, I want to discuss something that I believe changes everything about this war. And I mean everything because up until now, most people have operated under a very specific assumption. They assume that Iran is fighting this war alone, isolated, surrounded, outmatched, surprised by the speed and scale of what has happened. But that assumption is now completely outdated, completely wrong, because Iran is no longer alone. Yemen has just entered this war, and not symbolically, not politically, not with statements of solidarity or diplomatic gestures. Militarily, the Houthi movement, which effectively controls the most strategic parts of Yemen, has launched one of the largest attacks in their history. And this changes the entire geometry of the conflict. Let me explain why this matters so much. Yemen sits on one of the most important maritime choke points in the entire world, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That narrow passage between the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, through which a massive portion of global trade flows every single day. Tankers carrying oil, container ships carrying manufactured goods, bulk carriers carrying food and raw materials. And what the Houthis are now demonstrating is very simple. They can threaten to shut it down, not necessarily close it completely forever, but disrupt it enough that insurance rates skyrocket. Shipping companies reroute and global supply chains begin to crack. And if that happens, if that choke point is seriously disrupted at the same time that the Strait of Hormuz is under threat from Iran, then this war changes completely. Not gradually, but suddenly. Now, this is the moment where the structure of the war shifts. And once you understand what Yemen's entry actually means, not emotionally, but structurally, you begin to see something much more dangerous taking shape. This is no longer just a regional conflict. This is the beginning of a multi-front pressure system that could reshape the entire outcome of this war. So let me give you some context about Yemen, because most people in the West, most people in America, look at Yemen and they think a small, poor, broken country. It has been bombed for years. It is devastated. It has one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. What can it possibly do to the most powerful military in the world? And this is exactly the kind of thinking that has gotten America into this trap in the first place. Let me tell you what Yemen actually did. For 7 years, Saudi Arabia waged a genocidal war against Yemen. And this was not Saudi Arabia alone. The entire weight of Western support was behind that war. America was patrolling the Red Sea. America was providing intelligence, targeting assistance, and mid-air refueling for Saudi warplanes. America was helping create a food blockade and a medicine blockade around Yemen. There are credible reports from American military personnel themselves who say they stopped small boats trying to bring medicine into Yemen. They found medicine on those boats and they dumped it into the sea. Think about that for a moment. They took medicine meant for sick and dying people and they threw it into the ocean. That is the level of strangulation Yemen was facing. And with all of that, with Saudi Arabia's unlimited oil wealth, with Western military support, with 7 years of relentless bombing that destroyed hospitals, schools, markets, and water treatment facilities, Yemen did not fall. Yemen did not surrender. And what finally forced a ceasefire was not Yemen giving up. What forced the ceasefire was Yemen striking Saudi oil and gas installations so effectively, so precisely, and so painfully that Saudi Arabia simply could not continue. Yemen won that war. A small, poor, blockaded, starving country defeated Saudi Arabia and forced America to declare victory and walk away. That is who has just entered this war. And here is what you need to understand about Yemen today versus Yemen 7 years ago. Yemen has spent those years every single day developing its military capabilities. Just like Iran spent 25 years preparing for this exact conflict, just like Hezbollah spent years rebuilding after every Israeli attack, the West has a consistent pattern of underestimating these forces and then being shocked when they perform far beyond anything predicted. We saw it with Hezbollah. Everyone said Hezbollah is finished. Hezbollah is degraded. Hezbollah is no longer a major force. And now Hezbollah is striking harder than before. We saw it with Iran. The war was supposed to end in a day or two. Then they set a few days to destroy Iran's missile and drone capabilities. And now, after a full month of sustained strikes, Iran's missile and drone capabilities are increasing in effectiveness, not decreasing. The same underestimation is happening with Yemen right now, and it will produce the same result. So let us think about what Yemen can actually do. I want to be very specific here because the strategic picture is crucial. Yemen controls access to the Red Sea. The Red Sea is one of the most important trade routes in the entire world. Approximately 12 to 15% of all global trade passes through it. If Yemen closes the Red Sea, and it has the demonstrated capability to do this through anti-ship missiles, naval mines, drones, and fast attack boats, then you do not just have the Strait of Hormuz being threatened by Iran. You now have two critical choke points of global trade under threat simultaneously. The Strait of Hormuz in the east, the Red Sea in the west, two choke points, two fronts, one trap. But it goes even further than trade routes. Yemen can strike Saudi oil installations directly. It has done this before very effectively with drones and cruise missiles that got through American and Saudi air defenses. And if Yemen strikes those installations again, Saudi oil exports stop. Now combine that with Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to close it, or simply making it too dangerous to transit. And what you get is a scenario where the global oil supply is hit from multiple directions at the same time. We are already hearing from serious financial analysts that oil at $150 a barrel is possible if this continues. Some are saying $200. Think about what that means for the global economy. Think about what that means for America. An economy propped up by cheap energy and Gulf state investment. When energy is no longer cheap and Gulf states are no longer stable, that entire system comes under enormous stress. And then there is one more dimension to Yemen's role that almost nobody is discussing. Yemen could enter Saudi Arabia from the southwest. Yemen shares a long, porous border with Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, let me be very direct about this, cannot fight. 7 years of war against Yemen proved this conclusively. Despite its enormous wealth, despite its American weapons, despite complete air superiority, Saudi Arabia could not defeat a blockaded, starving country. Its military was humiliated repeatedly. Its cities were hit. Its economy was damaged. And now, with Iraqi resistance forces threatening from the north, with Iran threatening from the east across the Persian Gulf, and with Yemen threatening from the south, the entire Arabian Peninsula is in play. Think about this carefully because it gets to the heart of what a multi-front trap means strategically. If America is fighting Iran in the Persian Gulf, and Yemen is threatening the Red Sea, and Iraq's resistance forces are striking American bases, which they already are doing on a near daily basis, how many fronts can even the most powerful military in the world fight at the same time? Where does America send its interceptor missiles? It has a limited number of interceptors. We already know this from public statements and from the math of previous conflicts. We have already discussed how a single Iranian ballistic missile is being targeted by 11 American interceptors, all of which have been missing according to multiple reports. Interceptors cost between $3 and $10 million each. Iran's missiles cost far less. Iran's drones cost around $50,000. Yemen's weapons are similarly cheap. And now you have Yemen firing from the west, Iran firing from the east, Iraqi resistance firing from the north. Every missile America fires at Yemen is a missile it cannot fire at Iran. Every interceptor used in the Red Sea is an interceptor missing from the Persian Gulf. Every dollar spent on multiple fronts accelerates the financial unsustainability of this entire war. This is the trap, and America walked right into it. Now, I want to talk about something very important that most people are ignoring. What is actually happening on the battlefield right now beyond what the mainstream media is reporting? America has lost ground-based radar systems in the region. It is now much more reliant on airborne radar, what are called AWACS aircraft, surveillance planes that fly above the battlefield and provide radar coverage for all air operations. And one of these aircraft, an E-3 Century AWACS, was destroyed at an American base in Saudi Arabia. According to multiple open-source intelligence reports, these are extraordinarily expensive aircraft. America does not have many of them. Many of they are indispensable for coordinating air operations, tracking enemy aircraft, managing the battle space, and one is gone. Also, aerial tanker aircraft, the KC-135s that refuel American fighter jets in midair. Several have been destroyed or damaged. Why does this matter? Because American aircraft are maintaining a safe distance from Iranian air defenses. They cannot conduct sustained bombing campaigns without refueling in the air. Lose tanker aircraft, and you lose the ability to sustain air campaigns at range. These are not small tactical losses. These are strategic losses that reduce American operational capacity in ways that cannot be quickly replaced. And here is the deeper problem. America's military-industrial complex is designed to produce very expensive weapon systems slowly over many years. It is not designed to rapidly replace losses in a real war. The F-35 took 26 years to develop. You cannot replace F-35s quickly. The Gerald Ford aircraft carrier cost $13 billion and took years to build. Iran, on the other hand, is producing drones in dispersed, decentralized factories across the country. You cannot destroy them all, and they cost $50,000 each. The mathematics of this exchange are devastating for America over time. And now, Yemen adds another layer of drain on American resources and interceptor stockpiles. Let us address the ground troop question directly, because this is being discussed seriously in strategic circles, and I want to give you an honest analysis. We know that thousands of American Marines are heading to the region. The Secretary of Defense has refused to rule out a ground invasion, and the United Arab Emirates has been making statements about claiming 3 Iranian islands in the Strait of Hormuz that Iran has controlled since 1971. So is America planning a ground operation? And what would that actually mean? Let me give you the strategic reality. American ground forces could probably seize those islands initially. They could probably take certain coastal territory with overwhelming firepower. But here is the question nobody in American strategy seems to be asking seriously. What happens next? Iran has been planning for a ground invasion for 25 years. Not months, not years, 25 years. They have underground military bases inside mountain ranges that America has not even located yet. The missile and drone strikes we have seen so far, as impressive as they have been, are coming from a specific group of underground bases near the coast. There are many other underground bases deeper inside Iranian territory, inside the Zagros Mountains, inside the Albor Mountains that have not yet been activated. America is going to find out about those bases when its ground forces enter Iranian territory. And Iran has weapon systems, missiles, close-range defense systems, anti-armor weapons, and other capabilities specifically designed for exactly that scenario. This is not improvised. This has been planned for a generation. And consider the geography. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. It is mountainous. The Zagros Mountains in the west form a natural defensive wall. The Alborz Mountains in the north protect Thrawn. Difficult terrain everywhere. When America invaded Iraq the second time, Iraq was a broken country with an unpopular government. Its military had been degraded by years of sanctions and continuous no-fly zone enforcement. The terrain was flat desert, and America still needed hundreds of thousands of troops, heavy armor, and the cooperation of every country in the region to do it. Iran is nothing like Iraq. There is simply no comparison. But here is the most dangerous dimension of the ground troop scenario. If America sends ground forces into Iran, what stops Iran and the Iraqi resistance from moving their forces into Kuwait and Saudi Arabia simultaneously? What stops Yemen from entering Saudi Arabia from the south at the same time? If that happens, If Iran and Iraq push into Kuwait and northern Saudi Arabia and Yemen pushes in from the southwest, American forces in the Gulf could be flanked. The bases they are operating from could be threatened. The countries hosting those bases could collapse into chaos. And then where does America retreat to? This is the trap within the trap. Any escalation by America creates the conditions for a counter-escalation that threatens the entire American position in the Middle East, not just in Iran, but everywhere. Now, I want to talk about resilience because this is the most consistently misunderstood aspect of this war by Western analysts. The American argument goes something like this: we are killing Iranian leaders. We are bombing Iranian economic targets. We are creating hardship for the Iranian civilian population. Eventually, the pressure will force a collapse. Eventually, they will break. This argument reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what is actually happening inside Iran. Let me tell you what is happening on the streets of Tehran right now. There is heavy bombing, carpet bombing on some nights, and the response of the Iranian people is to come out onto the streets in the millions, waving flags, chanting, not in fear, not in despair, but in defiance. Women walking alone through Tehran at 1 in the morning, gatherings in multiple neighborhoods simultaneously, people singing along to revolutionary music after a night of bombardment. This is not a population on the verge of collapse. This is a population that understands deeply existentially that this is a war for their survival. And this resilience has roots that go far deeper than politics. When Iran temporarily had no supreme leader for a full week during the early stages of the conflict, the country did not descend into chaos. The armed forces kept fighting, the government kept functioning, the people kept taking to the streets. A civilization of 3,000 years does not collapse because its leader is targeted. It adapts, it continues, it absorbs the blow and fights back. We saw this throughout Persian history. Alexander came and conquered, but Persian civilization absorbed him. Rome fought for 300 years and never won. The Mongols conquered and became Persian themselves. Every time, Persian civilization absorbed the invader and continued, and Yemen has shown the same resilience. 7 years of genocidal war, of food and medicine blockade, and Yemen did not break. It came out of that war stronger than it entered it. The same dynamic is at work now. Every bomb that falls on Iranian or Yemen civilians does not weaken the resistance. It deepens it. It unifies it. It gives it more moral authority in the eyes of the world, and the world is watching. People across the world, including many in America itself, are rooting for Iran and Yemen in this war. This is extraordinary. This has never happened before in an American military conflict. Not in Vietnam, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan. And it tells you everything about who is winning the narrative dimension of this war. Let me now connect all of this to the economic endgame, because this is where I believe the war will ultimately be decided. The Iranians understand something very clearly, and the Yemenis understand it too. Time is not on America's side. Every single minute that this war continues, the shortage of energy, of petrochemicals, of fertilizer grows. It does not grow linearly, it compounds, and there is a delay built into the global supply chain. Ships take weeks to reach their destinations. Commodities take more weeks to reach markets, which means the full economic pain of what is being created right now has not yet been felt. But it is coming, and when it arrives, it will arrive fast and hard. Think about what $200 oil means for ordinary Americans. Think about what fertilizer shortages mean for food prices globally. Think about what liquefied natural gas shortages mean for Europe heading into winter. Think about what all of this does to the political position of any American president. A leader who has staked everything on economic performance, whose political scoreboard is the stock market and consumer confidence. The moment that scoreboard goes deep into the red because of an unpopular war that a majority of Americans oppose, the political will for this war collapses. And this is Iran's strategy. This is Yemen's strategy. They are not trying to defeat America militarily in a single decisive battle. They know that is impossible. They are making the cost of continuing this war economically and politically impossible to sustain. They are following a strategy as old as warfare itself. Bleed the empire, make staying more expensive than leaving, and then wait for the empire to make the rational choice. Iran's demands, when a settlement eventually comes, will be firm. American military bases in the Gulf cannot continue to serve as platforms for attacking Iran. Iran's allies, Yemen, Lebanon, the Palestinian people, Iraq, must be included in any settlement. The economic sanctions that have strangled Iran for decades must end permanently. These are not unreasonable demands from a civilization that has just survived an existential assault. They are the minimum conditions for a stable Middle East going forward. So let me give you the complete picture, the complete framework. Yemen entering this war is not just a military escalation. It is the closing of the strategic trap. Before Yemen entered, America faced one determined enemy, controlling one critical choke point. Now, it faces an axis from Iran to Iraq to Lebanon to Yemen that controls or threatens both critical choke points of global energy and trade simultaneously. That axis has escalation dominance at every level. That axis has the will, the unity, and the determination that America lacks in this conflict. That axis has been preparing for this exact scenario for years, in some cases for decades. America walked into this war with hubris, with the assumption that its military and economic power would be enough to force a quick surrender. It did not plan for Iran fighting back. It did not plan for Yemen entering. It did not plan for the economics of two closed choke points. It did not plan for the political consequences of a war that the majority of its own population opposes. Every day this war continues, the trap tightens. Every missile fired, every interceptor used, every drone that gets through costs America more than it costs the other side. Every barrel of oil that does not flow through the Strait of Hormuz or the Red Sea increases the global economic pressure that will eventually force a political reckoning inside America. The question is not whether America will have to find an exit from this war. The question is how long it takes and how much it costs before that exit is found. And that exit, when it comes, will not look like victory. It will look like what it is. The moment when the American empire, overstretched and overconfident, made its final critical miscalculation in the Middle East. The moment when the multi-front trap closed. The moment when Yemen entered the war and changed everything. This is not prophecy. This is structural analysis. This is game theory applied to the historical patterns we have studied. Think about this framework carefully. Question it. Test it against what you are seeing in the news. The most important thing is never to accept any analysis without thinking critically about the evidence. But if this framework is right, then we are watching a historic turning point, not just for the Middle East, but for the entire global order. History does not lie. And right now, history is moving very, very